Previously, the mysterious voice in the wind talking to Oz turned out to be a hag who he'd had previous dealings with. The hag made Yara and Enola disappear, telling the group they'd be the payment for Oz returning to the woods. That is, unless the group was willing to take care of some nuisance bears for her. The group was well aware that the bears had probably once been people, but they were stuck between a rock and a hard place, so they agreed to the deal, although Keelan made sure to word it as carefully as possible. Then they headed out to find the bears. The bears turned out to be large, two-headed creatures wearing collars. Keelan and Oz tried to reason with them to agree to what essentially amounted to tricking the hag, but the bears refused to cooperate, so the group began fighting them. It was a tough fight, but they were able to take down one of the bears, which turned into the bodies of two women when it hit the ground dead. Seeing that, Taria began insisting that the group focus on removing the collars instead of attacking the bears, but in the heat of the fight, the other bear ended up being killed as well. It turned into the body of two men. Taria began screaming, mist pouring off of her as she dropped to the ground beside the bodies. As that was happening, the hag finally showed herself, de-aging in front of the group's eyes, with Yara and Enola in tow. She told Oz that he'd have to visit her sister in Silt Shadow and give himself up to her. He agreed to the deal, although several members of the group didn't seem pleased. Then the hag disappeared. Taria told the group she was going to bury the bodies, but she intentionally started moving as slowly as possible in an attempt to kill the entire afternoon, as traditionally bodies were buried at sunset. Once the group realized what she was doing, some sharp words were exchanged, as she was upset they were so willing to kill people, and some of the others were upset that she was on her way to getting them killed. After some more back and forth, the group decided to split up for the rest of the day. Keelan, Sean, and Zaya headed off to pick up the mushrooms they'd been hired to collect, which were about 4 hours away. The others stayed behind to prepare the bodies, as well as keep an eye on Yara and Enola. Zaya and Sean had a quiet talk as they followed Keelan, as Zaya had noticed that Sean had been writing letters at night and then burning them. Sean referenced the date and mentioned an anniversary coming up, which seemed to mean something to Zaya. The three of them eventually found the mushrooms, and thanks to some creative freezing of water on Keelan's part, they were able to easily gather them up. Keelan also grabbed a few extra ones for Oz. Then they headed back. The others finished preparing the bodies and buried them at sunset, as was traditional. Once the others arrived back at the camp, they settled in for the night. Taria awkwardly asked Keelan for some of the beetles he'd gathered the day before. Eventually, they started their watches. Taria and Zaya had a talk during their watch together. Taria didn't understand why Keelan and Zaya seemed to think she considered them enemies. She just wanted them to stop killing people. Zaya pointed out that they'd been trying to keep themselves from being killed and made it clear that she had certain people she cared about, and they had priority for her. Taria admitted that she couldn't do that. That's not how her morals worked. Keelan and Tornak took the next watch, and Tornak asked to see the treasure maps. The two of them spent some time studying them, coming up with potential routes for their upcoming journey. Then they had a talk about Taria, with Tornak trying to play peacemaker, but the conversation mostly went in circles. Osru took his watch. Taria and Tornak failed perception checks while the other three made them, and secret happenings occurred in the middle of the night. What those happenings were will come out eventually. Or maybe not. The rest of the watch passed uneventfully. And that is where we left off.